Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of Staying Sweet, the podcast. It's your host, Alice Lucy Bradley, joining you today for another solo episode. Today's a really juicy one and one that I think you guys are going to want to listen very carefully. Get out your pen and paper if you are somebody who likes to take notes, or just get your notes app out on your phone. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about building your identity capital in your 20s and beyond. So first things first, what is identity capital? Alice, where have you got this term from? I've got it from TikTok and I've got it from a book called The Defining Decade. We're going to touch more into that a bit later on in the episode, but I was exploring TikTok, surprise, surprise, and found after doing a deep dive on identity capital that it is one of those topics that is kind of surfacing at the moment. And I think it's going to be the next, lucky girl syndrome. I think it's going to be the next lucky girl syndrome. So it's an emerging topic. Check it out. And I think it's going to be a really interesting, juicy topic to talk about. But firstly, let's talk about question of the week. Let's get those thoughts flowing. Let's just ease in to today's episode. So let's start with the question. Name something that you have done in your life that pushed you out of your comfort zone or was a totally new experience for you. How did it change you as a person, and how would you use those skills in your business or your personal brand? So you've probably got some thoughts in your head about how to answer that question. It does kind of encompass and sum up really what identity capital is, but I thought I would start with some definitions because we love a definition around here. It's good to get the facts, and the facts are identity capital can be defined as exposing yourself to a range of skills or subject matters or interests and investing in yourself. So essentially it's all the other things that make up you, your personality, your traits and your skill set outside of your work, and how they can incorporate and build your identity capital. So in kind of a business studies sort of term, it really is how you set yourself up as a person in the different categories that you might want to win in or be good at or grow from. So really, the power of identity capital lies in the communities that you become a part of, because those people that you meet and those opportunities to grow or nurture yourself or learn something new is really where you're going to grow as a person and learn those new skill sets. You don't have to be good at them necessarily, but you do need to be someone who is able to just give something a try and experience what it's like to do certain things. Now, I think identity capital really is just having hobbies outside of the norm and outside of your typical kind of routine. I think that's really where you will see growth. I think if you're somebody who gyms all the time and it's part of your routine, that might not necessarily fit the bill for identity capital for you because you're already doing it in your life and it's part of your routine. But for somebody else who might have never stepped foot in a gym, never run on a treadmill before, never run a 5K outside, starting running might be this totally new prospect. So everybody is going to be different. Let's think about it, maybe have some ideas in your head and a little brainstorm as to really where you can go with this, because I think the opportunities are endless and boundless, and I think there's so many different things that you can do to grow yourself, better yourself, and get yourself out there. I would go as far to say that recording this podcast on video is building and nurturing my identity capital, because who knows, I might use these public speaking skills to talk on a TV show or host my own live chat show. Like, you just don't know where this can go. So I'm giving it a dabble. I'm giving it a try. I would definitely say this is identity capital for me. It might not be for somebody else who does it every single day. But really, I think identity capital, what I found it to be coined by, so I believe this is the person who originated the definition and the term identity capital. It was Meg J from The Defining Decade. Now, this book has been on my reading list for ages. I actually found it through a YouTuber called Sienna Marabella. I've been watching her, God knows, most of my teen life and into my adult life. But she is really hyper aware of her kind of self-help growth. She's a growth girly. Do you know what I mean? She's just such a great person for a book recommendation. And I remember she was reading this book last year when I was kind of going through a bit of a self-development hiatus myself. And yeah, I loved where she was going with it. I really liked the fact that she was reading this book and kind of talking about how it's not necessarily like going to therapy and doing the work and doing the inner work and the child healing and all those different things. It was actually about trying new experiences and identifying the defining decade being our 20s and just using it as an opportunity to really grow. And another thing that I heard, which actually I feel like I heard this on TikTok, guys, would you believe? It was that when we're starting in our adult life, say for example we hit 20, we are in the birth of our adulthood, and actually we're only just in the infancy of our adulthood. So the expectation that we have to be doing things correctly or right when really we've been kind of following and sticking to a routine or following a life path that everybody else has been following, and then to be suddenly kind of thrown out into the deep end. We are in our infancy ultimately, and I think it's really quite interesting that Meg J coins the 20s as the defining decade. It's like when you learn to walk and talk. We're doing that, but in our adulthood. So I really like this idea of identity capital being quite an experimental time, quite an exciting time to kind of pursue different things and not hold yourself too accountable, not having to be perfect at everything, because you can't be. And, you know, you could take up a hobby one year and not do it next year, and that's fine, you know. Ultimately, you've learnt lessons, you've networked with new people, you've learnt new skills. So she defines identity capital as an individual's collection of personal assets, or how we build ourselves bit by bit through experience. So I don't want to be that person that dehumanizes human experience and dehumanizes individual things that we would say are our hobbies, but I do think there is an asset to people who show up to a job interview or, you know, have a personal statement. I know universities aren't taking personal statements now, but when I did my personal statement, I put my all into it, and I showcased that I had a blog, that I was writing kind of well before getting into university, that I was trying to do my very best at getting in. I was very bad at it, but I did a little stint of radio presenting at my school radio for a brief moment, and, you know, I gave that a shot, and those are the things that I mentioned in my personal statement. And actually, if I'm being honest, I didn't meet the grades to get into university, but because my personal statement was strong, because I had personal experience in the field and the industry that I wanted to get into, people or whoever was looking at my application believed and deemed me to be worthy to take the course, because I wanted to be there. I had a passion. I had a reason to be showing up and doing this degree. So ultimately, that's what got me in the door. So I think it's really interesting that she says that. And sometimes I think it's important that actually, do you know what? It is an asset. It's an asset to be confident. It's an asset to be able to network in a room full of opportunities. It's important to be good at those things. So find those things out for yourself, do a bit of digging, come up with some ideas and some brainstorms as to what could be your next kind of selection of identity capital. So she writes that those who take time to explore and have the nerve to make commitments along the way construct stronger identities. Now, I quite like this idea of stronger identities, because I think if you are somebody who has grit and determination and also the balls, I don't want to say the balls actually, the nerve, let's say the nerve. If someone has the nerve and the confidence to do something, doesn't it impress you a little bit? Do you ever see somebody you think, God, they've really given it a shot. They've given it a go. You know, higher self-esteem is attractive. And I'm not talking about necessarily being egotistical or ego-driven, but I do think in perseverance and showing up, there's got to be something that kind of supports a statement that those people are passionate and those people are going to be good for a team environment. So you want those people, you know, on your side, on your team, working for you or working with you. So let's throw some topics. Let's throw some topics off the top of our head. So I know the book mentions taking classes. That's very broad. You could go anywhere with that. You could be taking a nail course. I know a friend of mine is about to do that, embark on a nail course to learn something completely different. She's never, ever thought that she would go into that sort of area, but she's going to get a course in it, and hopefully that's going to earn her a bit of money, but also it's going to be a new skill for her. And some people might learn a language. I know I really should be brushing up on my French because I'm a quarter French, and I've got quite a few French friends now, so I really should be speaking more French. That's something that maybe I need to be dabbling in a little bit more. Go all Emily in Paris and just go to some French classes in Paris. There's making pottery, there's volunteering. Volunteering's a good one because, again, if we're being honest, it looks good on the CV. You can't complain with a bit of volunteering. Auditioning for something you don't know anything about. Why not? Give it a shot. You never know, you might be good at it. Read across genres. This is something that I'm quite guilty of, but I've started to do more of, is try new genres, because you can get very stuck in what you know. For me, it's self-help. I've started to dabble into travel non-fiction, and obviously because I'm a travel journalist, it kind of does fit and isn't that much out of my comfort zone. But I'm reading a new genre and I'm learning a lot along the way. And yeah, there's lots of new things on here. There's try new things without a focus to be good at it. And I think that's very, very true. I think there's no point expecting to be perfect at everything, because that's just not possible. Just showing up, attempting, giving it a try. So with this topic, identity capital, comes the identity crisis. Now, there's a fine line between the two, because I think you can overindulge and I don't know, you can get to a point where you think you are something, or you put yourself into a box. And I think the minute that you box yourself in anything in your life, whether it be your career, if it's your career and you say, I'm only this is the only thing I will do, then what happens if you have to take on new elements within a role? A big example with this in the journalism industry is those who are completely anti-social media and do not support it, do not agree with it. And basically, only the top people have really survived being able to resist that. But for the most part, the people that have been pushed out of companies or forced to resign or forced to do something else are the people who have said, no, I'm not getting involved. I'm not giving it a shot. I think it really does hinder you to be resistant to that change and that growth. So if you box yourself in, I think it's very hard for you then to pivot. If you're more open-minded to new opportunities and, developing your skill set, expanding and growing, I think you've got much more of an opportunity to kind of reap the reward, have more opportunities. There might be job roles out there that you are opened up to because you tried a new skill and you can add it to your resume or your CV. So you don't have to be one thing. You really do need to learn how to pivot as you learn new skills and you meet new people. I don't think I would have said that I thought I was going to be a podcaster so early on in my career. I didn't think that necessarily this would be for me. I always had an inkling that I wanted to do it, but I didn't realize how much I enjoy it, and actually I probably prefer it to writing, and that's interesting. I never knew that would be something that I would learn about myself. So just being open to that opportunity. I want you to also consider this idea that nothing is a waste of time, truly, because it's either going to be a lesson, or it's going to be a core memory, or it's going to be something that you laugh about during an interview or at the dinner table. I think it's really important that you can have a lighthearted air to yourself, and some things don't work out. You might trip and fall, you might say the wrong thing on a podcast, anything can happen, but it's about the resilience and just saying to anyone who you're speaking to, if it's a job interview and you say, well, I gave it a try, this is what I learned about myself, this is what I learned about how I work, then at the end of the day, your knowledge and your experience is the power. And ultimately the outcomes of all these different experiences, whether it be good or bad, are a return on our investment in ourselves. So I really, really want to leave you with just some food for thought. Find out who you could be. What things could you explore today? And go beyond the boundary. Try something new. Give it a go. I'd love to know what you guys end up doing as your identity capital grows. I need to think of some, actually. I will share them over on my social media. So make sure you check them out. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to today's episode. As always, all the information will be in the show notes and description. Make sure you follow at Staying Sweet Podcast over on Instagram, and check us out at the Staying Sweet community over on Facebook for a more in-depth conversation with the group chat. Thank you so much for listening, guys.